The alarm bells screamed through the Galactic Council's monitoring station like angry metal birds. Commander Zeltax of the Vorthak Empire pressed his clawed hands against his head as the sound cut through his skull. The noise meant only one thing. Something big was happening near the Andromeda transit zone. "Report!" Zeltax shouted over the noise. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. The station's main screen lit up with images that made no sense. Thousands of ships, hung in space where nothing had been just moments before. They were not like any ships in the galactic database. These vessels looked smooth and alive, as if they had grown instead of being built. Their hulls seemed to bend light around them, making them hard to look at directly. "Sir, the energy readings are impossible," said his assistant, a small blue creature with too many eyes. "The ships register as both matter and antimatter at the same time. Our computers keep crashing when they try to analyze them." Zeltax stared at the screen. He had been a military commander for 40 years. He had seen every type of ship the galaxy could build. These were different. These were wrong. "How many ships?" he asked. "Over 10,000, sir. All of them unknown design, all of them human." The word human hit Zeltax like a punch to the stomach. Humans were supposed to be stuck in their tiny solar system. They had barely learned to travel between stars. The Galactic Council had marked them as a primitive species, interesting but harmless. Now there were 10,000 human ships that should not exist. "Get me a direct line to the Nexari Collective and the Trade Union Council," Zeltax ordered. "Emergency protocol, code red." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out in command centers and monitoring stations. The Nexari telepaths felt the ships before they saw them, a strange buzzing in their minds that felt like touching electricity. The trade union's merchants stopped their deals and stared at profit calculations that made no sense. How could humans afford to build such a fleet? On the flagship of the mysterious Armada, Admiral Li Huan stood on the bridge and watched the alien ships gather. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too much. His uniform was simple and dark, with no fancy decorations. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at stations that looked nothing like human technology from Earth. "Sir, they're demanding we surrender," reported Captain Park Somi. She was young for a starship captain, maybe 30 years old, with short black hair and steady hands. "The Vorthak are saying we violated galactic law by entering this space." "Admiral," Juan smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "What do our sensors tell us about their ships?" 12 Vorthak battle cruisers, 8 Nexari mine ships, and about 30 smaller vessels from various species," answered Commander Kim Taiho from his position at the tactical station. He was a serious man who never wasted words. "Their weapons are charged and ready." Dr. Yoon Mira looked up from her science station. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though today she felt like the aliens were the experts, and she was the puzzle. "Admiral, I'm reading massive confusion from the alien telepaths. They can't understand what they're seeing." Admiral Huan nodded. "Open a channel to all ships." The main screen filled with angry alien faces. The Vorthak commander had red eyes and teeth like knives. The Nexari representative's head pulsed with strange colors. Behind them, dozens of other species waited to hear what the humans would say. "I am Admiral Li Huan of the Earth Fleet," he said, his voice calm and clear. "We are returning home. Stand aside." The alien commanders erupted in angry shouts and clicks and buzzes. The universal translator worked overtime to keep up. "Impossible!" roared the Vorthak commander. "Humans cannot build such ships. You will surrender immediately for inspection." "Your species is primitive," added the Nexari in a voice like singing crystals. "These ships violate known physics. Explain how you built them or face destruction." Admiral Huan listened to their demands without changing expression. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. Captain Somi's hand moved closer to the weapons controls. Commander Taiho's fingers danced over the tactical display. Dr. Mira watched the alien ships with scientific curiosity mixed with concern. "I will ask once more," Admiral Huan said. "Stand aside." The alien commanders looked at each other across their communication links. The humans were outnumbered 50 to 1. Their ships might be strange, but surely no technology could overcome such odds. You have 10 minutes to surrender, the Vorthak commander growled. Then we will take your ships by force. Admiral Juan nodded to Captain Somi. She pressed a single button on her console. What happened next would be talked about in alien military academies for generations. The human ships did not fire weapons. They did not raise shields. They did not run away or charge into battle. Instead, they simply began to fade. It started with the smaller ships at the edges of the formation. Their solid hulls became transparent, like looking through colored glass. Then the transparency became more complete, until the ships looked like ghosts of themselves. The larger ships followed, their massive hulls becoming thin and wispy. "What are they doing?" demanded the Vorthak. "Commander," his sensors showed the ships were still there, but his eyes said they were disappearing. The Nexari telepaths screamed in harmony as their minds touched something vast and impossible. "They're not disappearing," one of them whispered. "They're becoming something else." Admiral Juan's flagship was the last to fade. As it became transparent, the Admiral could be seen standing on his bridge, looking directly at the alien fleet through the main screen. He raised one hand in what might have been a greeting or a goodbye. Then they were gone. The space where 10,000 human ships had been was empty, except for stars and darkness. The alien sensors found nothing but a faint energy signature that tasted of ozone and dreams. No hyperspace trails, no dimensional rifts, no trace of where the ships had gone or how they had vanished. Commander Zeltax stared at his instruments in disbelief. "Run full spectrum analysis," he ordered. "Check for cloaking devices, dimensional shielding, anything that could hide ships that size." "Sir, there's nothing there," his assistant reported. "It's like they were never there at all." But they had been there. 50 alien ships and their crews had seen them with their own eyes. Thousands of sensors had recorded their presence. The energy signatures were stored in military databases across the galaxy. The Vorthak commander was the first to find his voice. "This is impossible. Ships cannot simply cease to exist." "Yet they did," replied the Nexari representative. Her mental voice was shaky with confusion. "Our telepaths felt something infinite just before they vanished, like touching the edge of an ocean that goes on forever." The alien fleet hung in space for 3 hours searching for any sign of the human ships. They found nothing. Finally, emergency protocols forced them to return to their home bases with impossible reports and evidence that no one would believe. On Earth, in a small office building in Seoul, Dr. Choi Jinwoo received a simple text message on his phone. "Package delivered. Returning home." He deleted the message and continued working on his research project about alien mining techniques. His colleagues at the Galactic Research Institute thought he was just another human scientist, eager to learn from superior alien technology. They had no idea he had been sending information back to Earth for 20 years. In the Outer Rim territories, Captain Bae Huna's reconnaissance ship received the all-clear signal and began Phase 2 of the operation. Her ship was small and quiet, designed to watch and record without being seen. For the next several days, she would monitor alien communications and report how they reacted to the impossible fleet. Back on the bridge of the flagship Soul's Promise, which now existed in a space between dimensions, Admiral Juan turned to his crew. "Well done, everyone," he said. "The first move is complete." "Sir, do you think they believed it?" asked Captain Somi. Admiral Juan looked out at the strange non-space around their ship. Here, between dimensions, physics worked differently. Time moved slowly. Distance meant nothing. His fleet of 10,000 ships existed in a state that alien science would call impossible. "They saw what they needed to see," he replied. "Now they'll spend months trying to understand how we did it. While they're looking for answers to the wrong questions, we'll prepare for the next phase." Commander Taiho pulled up tactical displays showing alien fleet movements across the galaxy. Already emergency signals were flashing between military bases and government centers. The galaxy was beginning to panic. "Sir, intelligence reports that the Galactic Council is calling an emergency session," he reported. "They're mobilizing investigation teams from 12 different species." Dr. Mira smiled from her station. Perfect. The more they investigate, the more confused they'll become. Our technology doesn't work the way they think technology should work. Admiral Juan nodded. For 50 years, humanity had been watching and learning. They had studied alien psychology, alien technology, alien military tactics. They knew how the galaxy thought, how it reacted to threats, how it dealt with the unknown. The aliens thought in terms of ships and weapons and physics they could understand. They expected enemies to follow rules they could predict. They believed that advanced technology meant bigger guns and stronger shields. They were about to learn that humans had moved beyond such simple ID. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council had been called for the first time in 30 years. Representatives from every major species gathered in the Great Hall on Centrum Prime, their voices creating a chaos of sound that the universal translators struggled to process. General Krextar of the Vorthak Empire slammed his armored fist on the speaking platform. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. I tell you, it was an illusion, some kind of trick with light and mirrors. Humans are too primitive to build such ships. Then explain the sensor readings, hissed Counselor Vexhai of the Nexari Collective. Her mental voice cut through the noise like a knife. Our telepaths felt something vast, something that made their minds burn when they touched it. Mass hallucination, Krextar growled. Your people are known for their mental tricks. Perhaps the humans learned some basic telepathy and confused your weak minds. The insult caused an angry buzz from the Nexari delegation, but Counselor Vexhai raised a hand for silence. General, our telepaths can read the thoughts of entire star systems. They do not suffer from hallucinations. In the back of the great hall, Dr. Choi Jinwoo sat quietly among the human observers. To everyone around him, he was just another scientist from Earth, invited to observe the proceedings. His simple appearance and nervous manner made him easy to ignore. No one suspected that every word spoken in this hall was being recorded and transmitted back to Earth through methods that violated several laws of physics. The debate raged for hours. Military commanders shared their data. Scientists presented theories that contradicted each other. Politicians demanded action against threats they could not identify. The hegemony representative, a tall creature with too many joints, spoke in a voice like grinding gears. Perhaps we should examine Earth itself. If humans built such a fleet, there must be evidence of massive construction projects. We have monitoring stations watching their system, replied the trade union delegate. Their technology level has not changed in 50 years. They have basic orbital platforms and a few slow ships for local transport. Nothing that could build 10,000 advanced vessels. Dr. Choi Jinwoo made a small note in his tablet, as if recording the interesting discussion. In reality, he was sending a coded message. They suspect nothing about Earth operations, proceeding with Phase 2 preparation. Across the galaxy, strange incidents were beginning to occur. Captain Bei Huna's reconnaissance ship, Soul's Shadow, monitored the alien. Communications from a position between dimensions where sensors could not detect her. Ma'am, we're getting reports from 15 different sectors, reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Gang Suho. He was young but sharp, selected for this mission because of his ability to process multiple data streams without confusion. Shoei. Me, Yuna ordered. The main screen filled with incident reports from across the galaxy. A mining station in the Vega sector reported ships appearing for exactly 3 minutes, extracting rare metals with impossible efficiency, then vanishing without a trace. A Nexari convoy found their cargo holds empty after encountering vessels that their sensors insisted were not there. A Vorthak patrol ship watched human vessels phase through solid asteroids as if they were made of air. How are our people doing this? Asked Lieutenant Gang. Captain Hyuna smiled. The same way we're sitting here in space that doesn't exist watching enemies who can't see us. The old humans learned to think bigger than the aliens ever imagined. Engineer Oh Dae-sung worked at his station, monitoring the phase shift generators that kept their ship hidden between dimensions. He was a quiet man who preferred machines to people, but his technology made their invisible war possible. Captain, the phase generators are stable, he reported. We can maintain this position for another 6 months if needed. Good. The longer we stay hidden, the more confused they become. The alien investigation teams were indeed confused. The greatest scientific minds in the galaxy worked day and night, trying to understand what they had witnessed. The Vorthak military commissioned secret weapons projects to counter technology they could not identify. The Nexari telepaths meditated for days, trying to touch again the infinite presence they had felt. Dr. Kelnara of the Scientific Consortium had spent 40 years studying impossible phenomena. She had explained quantum storms, dimensional rifts, and living planets. The human fleet made no sense according to any theory she knew. The energy signatures are contradictory, she reported to her team. The ships appeared to be solid matter, but also existed as pure energy. They followed no known principles of physics. Her assistant, a small mammalian creature with nervous habits, looked up from his calculations. Perhaps they come from another dimension or another time. I considered that. But dimensional travel leaves specific traces. Time travel creates paradox echoes. These ships left nothing but a faint energy signature that our instruments can barely detect. What Dr. Kelnara did not know was that the energy signature was intentional. Humanity had learned to exist in states that alien science could not classify. They were not quite matter and not quite energy, but something new that required different ways of thinking. On Earth, engineer Oh Daisung's mentor, Dr. Kang Eunji, worked in a laboratory that officially did not exist. She had spent 30 years developing the quantum phase technology that made the impossible fleet possible. Her work was based on principles that alien scientists had dismissed as theoretical nonsense. Reality is much more flexible than they believe, she had told her students. The aliens think in terms of solid matter and empty space. We learn to think in terms of probability and potential. The phase shift technology did not make ships invisible or intangible. Instead, it made them exist in multiple states at once, like quantum particles that were both waves and particles until someone observed them. The human ships existed in normal space, but also in dimensional folds, but also as patterns of pure information. From the aliens' perspective, trying to understand human technology was like trying to grab water with their bare hands. The investigation teams grew more desperate as days passed without answers. The Vorthak military commander, General Krextar, authorized the use of deep space scanning arrays that were normally reserved for detecting enemy fleets across entire star systems. If the humans have a secret base where they built this fleet, we will find it, he declared. The scans found nothing. Every human colony appeared exactly as it had for decades. Simple settlements with basic technology, populated by farmers and miners and small-scale manufacturers. No shipyards capable of building advanced vessels. No energy sources powerful enough to run exotic technology. But the scans did reveal something strange. In colony after colony, there were gaps in the population records. People who had been counted in census data but could not be found by the deep scans. Thousands of humans who seemed to exist in the records but not in reality. Administrative errors, concluded the Vorthak analysts. Primitive record-keeping by a primitive species. They were wrong. The missing people were very real and very busy. Master Sergeant Lim Sejong crouched behind a rock formation on the mining world of Kepler 438b, watching a Vorthak military convoy through his enhanced vision scope. He and his team had been on this planet for 6 months, officially working as mining equipment technicians for the local operation. Unofficially, they had been mapping every Vorthak military installation in this sector and planting devices that would be very useful when the time came for more direct action. Sergeant, the convoy is carrying orbital defense components, reported Corporal An Jung-ho through the team's quantum communication link. Looks like they're upgrading their defensive capabilities. Expected, Sejong replied. They're scared. Fear makes them predictable. The human special operations teams were scattered across 50 different worlds, all of them officially just civilian workers or cultural exchange students or research assistants. The aliens saw them every day and thought nothing of them. Humans were harmless after all. The reality was that humanity had been conducting the largest intelligence operation in galactic history for over 50 years. Every major alien military base had human observers. Every important government building had human workers with access to classified information. Every critical piece of infrastructure had human technicians who understood exactly how to disable. Dr. Choi Jin-woo had been one of the first. 20 years ago, he had arrived on Centrum Prime as a young graduate student, eager to learn about alien technology. The alien scientists had found his enthusiasm charming and his questions insightful. They had no idea that his real mission was to understand their weaknesses. Now he was the coordinator for all human intelligence operations in the core sectors. His simple office at the Galactic Research Institute was the nerve center for a spy network that spanned hundreds of worlds. The situation is developing as predicted, he reported in his daily transmission to Earth. The aliens are focusing all their attention on finding our secret shipyard. They have not considered the possibility that we built the ship somewhere they cannot reach. The truth was simpler and more complex than any alien investigation would discover. The mysterious fleet had not been built in normal space at all. The ships existed in the quantum realm, assembled from patterns of possibility rather than metal and circuits. Dr. Kellanara had not slept in 3 days. Her laboratory on Centrum Prime was filled with alien scientists from 12 different species, all working to solve the mystery of the human fleet. The walls were covered with equations, sensor data, and theoretical models that made no sense. The quantum signature analysis is complete, announced Dr. Vorthak, a crystalline being whose thoughts moved faster than most species could speak. The energy pattern matches no known technology in our databases. What about historical records? Asked Professor Zilhan of the Academic Union. Perhaps this is some ancient technology that humans discovered in archaeological ruins. Dr. Kelnara shook her head, causing her tentacles to sway with exhaustion. I checked every archaeological report from human space. They have found nothing more advanced than primitive metal tools and basic electronics. In the corner of the laboratory, Dr. Choi Jin-woo worked quietly at a borrowed computer terminal. To the alien scientists, he was just another researcher, brought in to provide insights about human psychology and culture. They had no idea that every equation and theory they developed was being transmitted to human analysis teams in real time. Perhaps we are asking the wrong questions, Jin-woo suggested, looking up from his screen. What if the humans did not build these ships at all? What if they found them? The suggestion caused excited chatter among the researchers. The idea that humans might have discovered abandoned alien technology was much easier to accept than the possibility that they had developed it themselves. But where would they find such ships? Asked Dr. Vorthak. Our deep space surveys have mapped every system within 50 light years of Earth. There are no signs of advanced civilizations. Not in normal space, Jin-woo replied carefully. But what about dimensional pockets, folded space, areas where our sensors cannot reach? It was a clever misdirection. While the alien scientists began planning expeditions to search for imaginary hidden bases, the real human operations continued without detection. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, Master Sergeant Lim Sejong received new orders through his quantum communicator. The small device looked like a simple maintenance tool, but it could receive messages from Earth instantly across any distance. Phase 3 is beginning, the message read. Prepare for historical revelation protocols. Sejong smiled grimly as he deleted the message. Phase 3 was the most dangerous part of the plan. It required revealing information that would shake the galaxy's understanding of its own history. He gathered his team in an abandoned mining tunnel deep underground. Corporal An Jong-ho and Specialist Kim Hana had been with him for 6 months, posing as equipment technicians while mapping Vorthak military installations. Change of mission, Sejong announced. We're moving to intelligence exposure protocol. Time to show the aliens that their history is not what they think it is. Kim Hana, who specialized in alien computer systems, pulled up files on her portable terminal. Sir, are we really going to reveal Operation Butterfly Effect? All of it, Sejong confirmed. The galaxy needs to understand that humans have been involved in their affairs for much longer than they realize. Operation Butterfly Effect was humanity's greatest secret. For 50 years, human agents had been subtly influencing galactic events. Every major war, Every political change, every technological breakthrough had been guided by invisible human hands. The aliens thought their history belonged to them. They were about to learn otherwise. On Centrum Prime, Dr. Choi Jin-woo initiated the first revelation. He accessed the Galactic Historical Archive using his legitimate research credentials and began uploading carefully prepared documents. To any observer, he was simply conducting routine research on recent galactic conflicts. In reality, he was planting evidence that would rewrite everything the galaxy thought it knew about the past. The first document appeared to be a routine Vorthak military report from 20 years ago, detailing the mysterious failure of their primary shipyard during the Hegemony War. The official explanation had always been a natural asteroid impact. The newly discovered report told a different story. Impossible. Navigation detected in asteroid trajectory. The report read, object changed course 17 times to ensure impact with primary construction facility. Probability of natural occurrence, less than 0.01%. Dr. Kelnera found the document first. She read it 3 times before calling her colleagues to examine it. This suggests the Vorthak shipyard was destroyed deliberately, she said, her voice shaking. But who had the technology to guide an asteroid with such precision? More documents appeared over the following days. A Nexari medical report about the plague that had ended their expansion into the outer rim. The official cause had been listed as a natural mutation of a common virus. The new evidence showed genetic markers that were impossible in nature. This virus was engineered, concluded Dr. Yixhall, the Nexari's leading biologist. Someone created a biological weapon that specifically targeted our immune systems. A trade union financial analysis revealed that the economic collapse that had ended the resource wars was not caused by market forces. Hidden transactions showed massive currency manipulation that could only have been performed by someone with access to classified trading algorithms. The revelations sent shockwaves through the galactic government. Emergency sessions were called. Intelligence agencies were mobilized. Security protocols were upgraded. And still, no one suspected the quiet human researcher who continued to work diligently in his corner of the laboratory. Captain Bae Huna watched the alien reaction from her hidden position between dimensions. Her reconnaissance ship Soul's Shadow had been monitoring communications across 20 star systems, tracking how the galaxy responded to each new revelation. They're beginning to understand, reported Lieutenant Gang Suho. Military commanders are requesting reviews of all major conflicts from the past 50 years. And what are they finding? Huna asked. Exactly what we want them to find. Evidence of manipulation in every major galactic event. But they still think it must be another alien species. The idea that humans were responsible is too impossible for them to consider. Engineer Oh Dae-sung looked up from his monitoring station. Captain, I'm detecting massive increases in military communication traffic. The entire galaxy is moving to high alert status. Expected, Huna replied. Fear is a powerful motivator. They're starting to realize that someone has been controlling their history for decades. They just don't know who. The truth was more complex than any alien investigation would discover. Humanity had not simply been manipulating galactic events for their own benefit. They had been preventing something much worse. 50 years ago, when humans first made contact with galactic civilization, they had quickly realized that the galaxy was heading toward a massive war that would destroy billions of lives. The various species were too aggressive, too territorial, too convinced of their own superiority. Left to their own devices, the galaxy would have torn itself apart within a generation. So humanity had intervened. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as subtle guides. They had ended wars before they could escalate. They had prevented the development of weapons that could destroy entire star systems. They had guided galactic civilization away from paths that led to extinction. The Hegemony War would have become a galactic holocaust if the Vorthak shipyard had continued producing planet-killer weapons. The Nexari expansion would have triggered a telepathic arms race that could have shattered the minds of entire species. The resource wars would have led to the strip mining of inhabited worlds. Humanity had prevented all of it through careful manipulation of events. They had saved trillions of lives and no one had ever known. But now the secret was coming out. and the galaxy's reaction was exactly what human planners had predicted. Instead of gratitude, there was fear and anger. Instead of understanding, there was paranoia and suspicion. Admiral Song Jiho reviewed the intelligence reports in his command center beneath the Pacific. The alien response was following the predicted patterns exactly. Military mobilization is increasing across all sectors, reported Lieutenant Colonel Park Doyon. The Vorthak are reactivating their deep space defense grids. The Nexari are expanding their telepathic surveillance networks. Even the peaceful species are beginning to arm themselves. They feel violated, Admiral Song observed. The idea that their history was not their own is more threatening than any weapon we could point at them. Sir, should we proceed to Phase 4? Admiral Song considered the question carefully. Phase 4 would be the final revelation, the truth about what humanity had become. Once that information was released, there would be no going back. Not yet. Let them discover a few more pieces of the puzzle first. The shock needs to build gradually, or they might do something desperate. On Earth itself, Dr. Kang Yun-ji worked in her hidden laboratory, monitoring the quantum signature of every human agent scattered across the galaxy. Her advanced scanners could detect the life signs of humans operating in dimensional spaces that alien technology could not reach. All teams are reporting successful mission completion, she announced to her staff. The historical evidence has been planted according to schedule. The aliens are beginning to piece together the truth. Her assistant, Dr. Sim Yena, looked concerned. Doctor, what if they decide to? The combined fleets of 12 galactic species hung in space around Earth like an angry metal cloud. Over 3,000 warships from the Vorthak Empire, the Nexari Collective, the Trade Union, and 9 smaller powers had gathered for what they believed would be the final confrontation with humanity. General Krextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath, and stared at the small blue world that had somehow orchestrated 50 years of galactic manipulation. Earth looked exactly as it always had, a single planet with primitive orbital stations and basic defensive satellites. Sir, our deep scans confirm what our intelligence reports indicated, his tactical officer reported. No sign of the advanced shipyards that would be needed to build the Phantom fleet. No hidden bases, no weapon platforms capable of threatening our forces. Then where did those ships come from? Krextar growled. 10,000 vessels don't materialize from nothing. Counselor Vexhai of the Nexari spoke through the communication link, her mental voice carrying undertones of confusion. General, our telepaths are detecting something very strange about the humans on Earth. Their thoughts feel incomplete, as if we're only sensing part of their minds. Explain. When we scan human colonies, we read complete thoughts, full emotional patterns, normal mental activity. But the humans on Earth feel like echoes, like we're seeing shadows instead of the real people. Admiral Korthani of the Trade Union Fleet added his voice to the discussion. My economic analysts have been reviewing human trade patterns for the past 50 years. The numbers don't add up. According to our records, humanity has been purchasing raw materials and selling manufactured goods at levels that should be impossible given their apparent industrial capacity. The alien commanders shared their data and found more impossibilities. Human energy consumption was far below what would be needed to support their reported population. Their food production statistics made no sense. Their waste disposal systems processed amounts that didn't match their supposed activity levels. It's as if half their civilization is missing from our sensors, concluded Dr. Kelnara, who had been brought along as a scientific advisor. We can see their cities and their people, but something is hiding from our detection methods. On Earth, President Najiman stood in the emergency command center beneath Seoul, watching the alien fleets position themselves for battle. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen the rise and fall of governments. Today, she would reveal a secret that would change the galaxy forever. Ma'am, all human assets are in position, reported General Han Wujin. He commanded Earth's official defense forces, the orbital platforms and patrol ships that the aliens could see and understand. Our conventional forces are ready to play their part in the deception. And our actual forces? Dr. Sim Yena looked up from her quantum monitoring station. All consciousness matrices are stable and ready for manifestation. The collective is prepared to reveal itself. President Na nodded. Open a channel to the alien fleets. It's time they learned the truth. The communication screen filled with angry alien faces, generals and admirals and counselors from across the galaxy, all demanding explanations for humanity's deception. I am President Najiman of Earth, she said, her voice calm despite the fleet of weapons pointed at her world. You have come seeking answers about our capabilities. I will give you those answers, though you may not be prepared for what you learn. General Krextar's red eyes burned with fury. Enough games, human. Where are your hidden shipyards? Where is the technology that built your phantom fleet? We will tear apart your system piece by piece until we find the truth. The truth is simpler than you think, President Na replied, and more complex than you can imagine. General Han, please demonstrate our conventional defenses. General Han nodded and activated Earth's visible military systems. Orbital platforms extended weapon arrays. Patrol ships moved into defensive formations. Shield generators came online around the planet. The alien fleet commanders examined the human defenses with professional interest. The technology was adequate but not impressive. The weapons were standard designs used by dozens of species. The shields were basic force field generators that any military academy student could understand. This is what you're hiding behind? Admiral Korthani laughed. These defenses couldn't stop a single one of our battle cruisers. You're absolutely correct, President Na agreed. Those defenses are completely inadequate to protect Earth from your fleets. Fortunately, they are not our real defenses. Made a simple gesture to Dr. Sim Yana, who pressed a single control on her console. What happened next would be studied by alien scientists for centuries. Every human on Earth simply stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. In cities and towns, in vehicles and buildings, in orbital stations and underground facilities, 7 billion humans turned their faces toward the alien fleets, and then they smiled. What are they doing? Demanded Counselor Vexhai. Her telepathic senses were screaming warnings that she couldn't understand. General, the human thoughts are changing. They're becoming something else. The humans on Earth began to fade, not disappearing like the Phantom Fleet had done, but becoming transparent while remaining visible. Their bodies became outlined in soft light, as if they were made of energy rather than flesh. Impossible, Dr. Kelnara shouted from her position on the scientific vessel. Living beings cannot exist in multiple states simultaneously. It violates every law of biology and physics. President Na's image on the communication screen also began to change. Her solid form became translucent, shot through with patterns of light that pulsed with her heartbeat. Dr. Kelnara, you are correct that living beings cannot exist in multiple states, she said. But we are no longer simply living beings. Humanity evolved beyond purely biological existence 300 years ago. What you have been observing for the past 50 years are not our true selves. They are echoes, projections, avatars of our actual consciousness. The revelation hit the alien commanders like a physical blow. The Nexari telepaths screamed in harmony as their minds touched the edge of something vast and infinite. The Vorthak computers crashed as they tried to process data that violated their programming. The trade union economists stared at numbers that made no mathematical sense. Every human you have ever met, President Na continued, every trade agreement you have signed, every cultural exchange you have participated in, you have been interacting with small fragments of a collective consciousness that exists primarily in dimensional spaces your science cannot detect. General Krextar found his voice first. You're saying, every human in the galaxy, they're all connected? They're all part of some kind of hive mind? Not a hive mind, corrected Dr. Simyana, her form now completely composed of shifting light patterns. A collective consciousness. Each human retains their individual personality and memories, but we share a deeper level of awareness that connects us across any distance instantly. The implications began to sink in for the alien commanders. If every human was connected to every other human, Then the quiet researchers and trade representatives and cultural ambassadors scattered across the galaxy were not individuals acting alone. They were all part of a single vast intelligence that had been observing and manipulating galactic affairs for decades. "The Phantom Fleet," whispered Admiral Corthani. "Those weren't ships at all, were they?" "Correct," Admiral Li Huan said, as his image appeared on the communication screen. He looked exactly as he had when commanding the impossible fleet, but now his form was clearly composed of energy, rather than matter. The fleet was composed of human consciousness, given temporary physical manifestation through quantum manipulation. What you saw as ships were actually 10,000 human minds working together to create a shared reality. Dr. Kelnara's scientific mind struggled to process the information. But how? How did you evolve beyond biological existence? How do you maintain individual consciousness while sharing collective awareness? President Na smiled gently. 300 years ago, humanity discovered that consciousness is not dependent on biological brains. We learned to exist as patterns of quantum information that can manifest in physical reality when needed. We kept our biological forms because they were familiar and comfortable, but they are no longer necessary for our existence. The alien fleets hung in space around Earth, their weapons useless against an enemy that existed primarily as information and energy. The humans on Earth continued to fade until they were barely visible, like ghosts made of starlight. Every major galactic event for the past 50 years, General Krextar said slowly, you were behind all of it. The ended wars, the prevented catastrophes, the guided political changes. It was all you. Yes, President Na confirmed. When we first encountered galactic civilization, we realized it was heading toward inevitable self-destruction. Too much aggression, too much territorial competition, too much fear of differences. Left to your own devices, you would have destroyed yourselves within a generation. So you manipulated us, Counselor Vexhai accused. You violated our sovereignty, our right to determine our own destiny. We guided you away from extinction, Dr. Sim corrected. Every intervention we made prevented suffering and death on a massive scale. The key: 7 days had passed since the revelation at Earth. The alien fleets remained in orbit around the blue world, but their formation had changed. Instead of attack patterns, they had arranged themselves in discussion groups. Ships from different species floated near each other, as their crews debated the choice that humanity had offered them. On the bridge of the Dominion's Wrath, General Krextar stared at intelligence reports that painted a disturbing picture. Across the galaxy, reactions to the human revelation had split along predictable lines. Some species were intrigued by the possibility of evolution beyond physical existence. Others were terrified by the implications. A few were preparing for war against an enemy they couldn't understand. Sir, the Hegemony Council has declared humanity an existential threat, his aide reported. They're mobilizing everything they have. Planet killers, dimensional bombs, even the forbidden weapons from the Vault of Sorrows. Krextar's claws scratched against his command console. Fools. How do you fight an enemy made of consciousness? How do you bomb targets that exist between dimensions? Perhaps that's the point, suggested Dr. Kelnara, who had remained with the fleet as a scientific advisor. The most aggressive species are choosing violence because it's the only response they understand. They would rather destroy the galaxy than admit they don't have control over it. The communication screen activated, showing President Najiman standing in what appeared to be a garden on Earth's surface. She looked solid and real, but subtle details gave away her true nature. Her shadow fell in directions that didn't match the sunlight. Her clothes moved in wind that touched nothing else. General Krextar, I understand you have questions about our offer, she said. Ambassador Go Minji is prepared to meet with your delegation to discuss the details of what evolution would mean for your species. A new figure appeared beside President Na. Ambassador Go Minji was young for such an important position, perhaps 40 years old, with kind eyes and a patient manner. Like the president, her form showed signs of existing in multiple states simultaneously. General, I want to address your concerns about losing individual identity, Ambassador Go said. Evolution to collective consciousness does not mean becoming a mindless part of a group. Each person retains their memories, personality, and free will. The change is that you also gain access to the experiences and knowledge of everyone else who has made the transition. Counselor Vexhi's mental voice joined the conversation. What about our bodies? Our physical existence? Many of us have cultural and religious attachments to our material forms. You can maintain physical bodies if you choose, explained Dr. An Soo-young, Humanities Consciousness Integration Specialist. Her image appeared as pure light shaped roughly like a person. Many of us still prefer physical forms for certain activities. The difference is that your body becomes a choice rather than a limitation. The discussion was interrupted by urgent alerts from across the galaxy. The hegemony forces had begun their attack, not on Earth, but on human colonies throughout their territory. Worlds that had appeared empty during recent investigations were being subjected to orbital bombardment and planet-cracking weapons. They're trying to kill humans who aren't there anymore, observed Admiral Korthani with dark humor. They're bombing empty cities and attacking evacuated colonies. President Na's expression showed sadness, but not surprise. We expected this. Reaction from some species. The hegemony has always solved problems through violence. They cannot accept that their greatest weapons are useless against us. General Krextar watched the tactical displays showing hegemony fleets destroying uninhabited human settlements. Will you defend yourselves? Will you fight back? We will demonstrate why violence is no longer necessary, President Na replied. Across hegemony space, something impossible began to happen. The massive fleet that had been systematically destroying human colonies found their weapons simply stopping. Not breaking down or malfunctioning, but ceasing to exist as functional devices. Energy cannons became sculpture. Missile launchers turned into abstract art. Even hand weapons carried by ground troops transformed into objects that looked like weapons, but no longer worked as weapons. How are they doing this? Demanded Admiral Vexkran of the hegemony fleet. His ship's main guns had become a series of metal tubes that produced beautiful music when the wind blew through them. The answer came from philosopher Ryu Donghyuk, whose image appeared on communication screens throughout hegemony space. He was an elderly human whose form existed as patterns of shifting light and shadow. Violence requires the participants to agree that violence is possible, he explained in a voice like distant thunder. We have chosen not to participate in that agreement. In our presence, weapons become tools for creation rather than destruction. The hegemony forces found themselves unable to continue their attack. Their ships still functioned, but every system designed for warfare had been transformed into something else. Life support became more efficient. Communications improved. Even their armor was changed into comfortable clothing that provided better protection from environmental hazards. This is impossible, Admiral Vexkran shouted. You cannot change the fundamental nature of matter. We did not change matter, Philosopher Ryu replied calmly. We changed the rules that govern how matter behaves in our presence. Reality is much more flexible than you have been taught to believe. The demonstration sent shockwaves through the galaxy. If humans could disable weapons simply by refusing to acknowledge their existence as weapons, then no military force could threaten them. The concept of warfare itself became meaningless when one side existed beyond the rules that made conflict possible. The reaction among the galactic species was swift and decisive. 3 different groups emerged from the chaos of the past week. The first group, led by the trade union and several smaller peaceful species, chose evolution. Ambassador Go Minji worked with their representatives to begin the consciousness integration process. It would take time and careful preparation, but entire civilizations began the process of moving beyond purely physical existence. The transition is gradual, she explained to Admiral Korthani, who had volunteered to be among the first of his species to attempt evolution. You will not lose yourself. Instead, you will become more than yourself. The process began with meditation and consciousness expansion exercises. Gradually, volunteers learned to perceive reality beyond the limitations of their biological senses. They discovered that thoughts could influence matter, that consciousness could exist independently of brain activity, that individual minds could merge temporarily while maintaining separate identities. Dr. An Soo-young guided the first successful transitions. "You are not becoming human," she assured the new collective consciousness members. "You are becoming what we all can be when we move beyond the barriers between minds." The second group chose to remain in physical existence but accepted human guidance in building a peaceful galactic civilization. These species acknowledged that they needed help to overcome their aggressive tendencies and territorial conflicts. General Krextar surprised everyone by leading this group. "The Vorthak Empire has been built on conquest and domination for 1,000 years, he announced to his people. "But conquest is meaningless when your enemies can turn your weapons into music. Perhaps it is time to learn a different way." The Vorthak military became explorers and builders instead of conquerors. The Nexari used their telepathic abilities to help resolve conflicts rather than to spy on enemies. Species that had been enemies for generations worked together on projects that benefited everyone. "We will maintain our independence and our physical forms," General Krextar explained to President Na during one of their regular meetings. "But we accept that you understand peace better than we do. Teach us." Philosopher Ryu Donghyuk became the primary instructor for these species. His lessons were simple but profound. Violence is a choice. Cooperation produces better results than competition. Diversity of thought and culture makes civilization stronger. The third group, led by the hegemony and several military dictatorships, chose war. Even after their weapons were transformed into harmless objects, they refused to accept human superiority. They declared their intention to develop new technologies and new strategies to defeat an enemy that existed beyond physical reality. "Let them try," President Na said sadly when informed of their decision. "They will learn that fighting consciousness itself is like trying to punch mathematics or shooting at the concept of love." The hegemony forces retreated to their core worlds and began desperate research programs. They tried to develop weapons that could affect beings of pure energy. They attempted to create dimensional barriers that could block consciousness transmission. They even experimented with devices designed to force evolved beings back into physical form. All of their efforts failed. Human consciousness existed in states that their technology could not detect or affect. Trying to fight beings made of quantum information was like trying to capture wind in a butterfly net. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the transformation continued. Species that chose evolution discovered abilities they had never imagined. They could travel instantly across any distance by shifting their consciousness between bodies. They could share